So I hope you're all not sick of this wall. I think this is my most attractive wall in the apartment. So we're gonna stay here for a little bit. If someone tells me to move, then I'll move. Anyway, let's talk about the week. Some kind of fun things to talk about this week. Let's go. I realize that I've been playing pretty fast and loose with the idea of tip as I've been doing this series. It's always a different observation or tip. Last week it was the working on Trello and showing you how that all works. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, the process of building things up. But this week I want to change gears to talk a little bit about the journey, like where I'm at with it. I was actually originally going to do a different video this week. It's coming up probably next week. I've got a pretty light calendar next week, where I want to talk a little bit about my motivation and what kind of drives me to be a musician. But because I think it's important for context of why I'm even doing this. This is not an easy road that I find myself on now. But I want to take a moment to actually appreciate the week that was. And, I'm actually at the point now in this series where I have to look back through my titles to make sure I'm not repeating any. And calling this one Sometimes It Works is it's a little tongue-in-cheek, and there will be a small tip at the end that I could probably deliver in about 8 seconds. But it's really about the journey that was this week. And then I sometimes have to kind of look at what happened during the week and decide that was good, actually. Like, that worked well. If you don't stop and appreciate when things go well, then you're just changing for change's sake. The idea is to kind of, obviously you want to always be a better version of yourself, or at least that's how I approach things. But to give yourself the kind of time and grace to say, yeah, that's the thing I need. I need more like that. Like, that was a success. Now, how do I make that success happen more often? How do I make that the norm? That's a challenge for a different day, but in the moment, appreciate the success. And so this week's really about 2 gigs and how they really kind of forced me to stop and appreciate, hey, yeah, I'm doing this. This is actually really good. And those were on Thursday. I was actually back at the Chit Chat, which is a place in Pacifica that I've talked about before. And the owner there, they've actually just changed owners. So I called, actually got the owner on the phone when I called and said, hey, I'd love to play at Chit Chat again. I'm trying to kind of get back into the mode of playing music again. And we talked on the phone, and then we emailed, and she said, well, there's a musician, an artist who's coming here doing an art installation, she's starting to do a monthly art installation. And, we would love to have music in the background for that. We don't have someone yet. And they would pay me a little bit for that. And she says, well, the artist was hoping it'd be something a little instrumental. And knowing what I am and what I am not, I said, well, that's not really what I do. I'm definitely a singer and a guitarist. And while looping can sound instrumental when you're doing it, especially if you do it slowly, that's not really exactly what you get with me. So I said, well, I want to be clear about what I am and what I'm not. I can't do that. But what I can do is I can kind of keep the energy sort of on the chill side and really maybe pitch the volume low so it's just really more ambience. And this way it's not about the music, it's about the art. And she talked to the artist and got some feedback that was like, yeah, that'd be great. So I said, okay, well, I've now set expectations to what I can do. Because my calendar is kind of light right now, and because I've been doing a lot of emailing and texting and whatever, I enjoy Chit Chat. It's a fun spot. So I went there early, got a sandwich and a coffee, and sat down, and it's on the coast, and just enjoyed being in the Chit Chat. Set up my gear early as well, and talked to the owner. I got a chance to say hi. And then when the artist got there, I went and I talked to him and introduced myself and said, hey, his name is Michael Madden. He's an Irish artist. And I said, hey, I just want to introduce myself, say, I hope you have a great show today, and let you know that whatever you need, just let me know. Like, my goal is to make sure that I'm supporting you. So that means, like, if I'm playing too loud, don't hesitate to let me know and I'll adjust. And I think that was a good thing. I think it's a good thing to do that, to kind of know what you're doing in the moment. I even didn't advertise it as much to my I hesitate to say fans. I do have a couple of people I think are legitimately fans at this point, but I didn't advertise it that way. I said, hey, this is going to be more about me in the background, and for me as a musician, that meant playing stuff that I don't play as often because usually I'm trying to keep the energy levels higher so people can dance. It's one of the advantages of looping. But I did the gig and I got really an amazing response. The artist really appreciated it. He had a good day. He sold a couple pieces. And, a lot of people took business cards. The artist himself was taking video of me a few different times. I had people singing along, which wasn't really what I was setting out for, but when it happens organically, when you're not kind of drawing it out of the audience, I'm not going to fight it. And everyone had a great time. And then I said my goodbyes, thanked everyone again. Then I went across town to Palo Alto to see the tail end of the Third Thursday, which I wasn't performing in, obviously. But there was the School of Rock, it's a music school in Palo Alto, was one of the featured acts, and the director there is someone I'm actually interested in potentially doing guitar teaching for. So, got to say hi to him, see the kids bands play, and it was pretty fun. So like a little networking there. Then on Friday was my first time playing at a new retirement community, which was my friend Margaret actually made an introduction to someone who owns a retirement community, and we got me in there. I played, and it was this is the second retirement community that I've played at now. And it was a bigger, like the kind of common area, living room area was a lot bigger here. So there were more people at this place, and probably 40, 50 people in the audience, which for me, at my point, that's a pretty big audience. And it was ended up being like really, really great. I was able to use the miniature kit, which I'll link out to the video that I just published on how I designed it. You might get something out of it, mostly perusing it, but I think, and if you're a musician who's found yourself to this channel, welcome. And it's basically, I've really tried to make that workflow comfortable and pleasant to use, and in the end, I felt like I really did. It was really, really great to use it now. So I had a good sound, I had a comfortable setup, I set it all up, and we had people dancing multiple times. And even at the end of the show, we had a little bit of an encore request. Someone said, hey, can you do one more? And I was caught a little flat-footed on that, and that'll be at the end for the tip. Then that day, still kind of buzzing from the playing at the retirement community, I decided to go to an open mic. And the person who's organizing the open mic, this guy Pete, he comes up to me. He says, "You're Rick Sanders, right?" And I thought, okay, yeah. I mean, I'm not typically recognized, so that was unusual. Or maybe I said Rick. He's like, "Yeah, Rick Sanders, right?" Or something like that. And he's like, "Yeah, I've heard of you." I thought, okay, that can go either way. So I went there, as I do with open mics. I still remember what it's like to be new to this. I was an adult student of music. My first open mic was maybe 13 years ago. And I remember being super nervous. I remember the adrenaline of the whole thing. But also I remember and appreciate the supportive nature of open mic environments. And the Cafe Zoe in Menlo Park, where I was playing at, was one of the places I'm thinking about maybe playing, so I wanted to kind of introduce myself, if you will, to the community there. Take out the smallest version of my loop kit, which is just the RC600 and 2 pedals. There's no vocals, no nothing. So I can set up inside of a minute. And I take out the RC600, and Pete looks at it and he says, "Yeah, we don't do that here." I said, okay, I mean, that's okay. I could play acoustically. I mean, this is kind of what I do. I've done it at other open mics. And he sighs dramatically and he says, "Okay, well, we don't typically let people do this here." And there was kind of already almost like a playful dynamic with this guy who I think wanted to see it, but didn't want to see the looping thing done live. And I think he's a bit of a purist in terms of like playing the guitar is it should be enough. And there's something there. I've definitely seen many guitarists who feel that way, and I think earned that viewpoint. But and it almost ran aground again because I look around the area where the open mic is taking place, and there's no plugs anywhere. And unfortunately, the RC600 does not run on batteries, so I'm not gonna be able to do it anyway. But at this point, I'd befriended another guy, this guy Steve, who was like teasing Lou, or sorry, I was like Lou. Lou's a different guy who was there, teasing Pete on my behalf, and he's like, we have an extension cord or a power strip we can use. So there's a whole don't make me do this kind of vibe to it that was very, I don't know, maybe it was because I was buzzing from having just done a very, I thought, good gig at the retirement community, but I was there for it. It was very playful in a weird kind of way. And when I even got up to do my set, I did 2 songs. I'm trying to set up as soon as possible. So like I put my stuff on the ground. It's approximately in a place that is sort of functional. It's not remotely ideal. It's off-centered to me. There's cables and nonsense everywhere in the way. It's the worst for muscle memory that you can imagine. But at this point, I'm just like, let's just get up here and do this thing. It's always the juggling of like, I probably need to like just memorize a couple songs so I can skip the iPad. But like I've got the iPad out there. I've got carrying a guitar, carrying the RC6600, trying to do it all in one trip without any cart or anything like that. So I get up there, and Pete's like making a kind of teasing excuse for like, yeah, well, this guy's bringing all this stuff. We're just gonna try to work with it. I was not nearly the slowest person to set up, by the way, but it was kind of funny all the same. So I get up there on the mic, I'm getting my guitar plugged in, verifying everything's working, and saying, yeah, so I just want to say thank you to Pete for being so patient with me. When I walked in here, he told me he would not let me do this. So he's relenting, but I'm already 1 strike down, so we're going to try to make this work and make it worth it. Everyone laughs. So I do Just Like Heaven, which is like my new favorite, easiest song that I do. I think the Cure fits my voice really well. It's a really fun little like build where it's got drums, bass, guitar, lead guitar. And then I end with Father and Son, which I think is one of my better singing songs. And just like a really nice guitar parts, very, very minimal looping in that song. And, get to the end of my set and people, Father and Son always lands well. And so the audience was very responsive and gracious. And, even one of the other performers helped me carry my stuff back to my table. And, Pete comes over at the end and he says, okay, all right, I'm too old to learn how to do that, or whatever he said, something like that. He's very like complimentary in a kind of reluctant way, but there was a really fun, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that kind of dynamic. I enjoyed it kind of put things in a playful mood, which made me feel at ease, weirdly. But yeah, this represents like two gigs. My Saturday gig there was temporarily going to be one at Chit Chat, but it didn't work out for logistic reasons, so that didn't happen. And now I'm practicing for another gig. I'll be playing it the 3rd Thursday in February with a band that we're throwing together. My first time trying to lead a band. And so I've got some rehearsal to do. But yeah, like monetarily, like in terms of like, did I make enough money from gigs this week? No, absolutely not. Did I feel like I furthered my goals as a musician? Absolutely. Those were 2 of the best gigs in terms of the working the retirement community and the art opening. Those were fantastic. Those were great first impressions. They were receptive audiences. Business cards disappeared. That's the build. That's the slow build of my reputation and my skill and experience as a performer. But that's why I call this sometimes it works. Like even though there's room for growth in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm still healing. I still have to get my calendar in better order. I've got a lot of networking to do. There's so much to do. This is by far the hardest endeavor I've ever tried to do as a human, and trying to make it work as a full-time musician. And again, I'm pretty sure the next episode is going to be about motivation because I want to talk about that. But was it something I should celebrate as a success? Yes, absolutely. And it felt good that all the preparation, because I'm doing a lot of practice to get myself back in playing shape, really felt like it landed. And that a lot of like when I give people business cards now, they're like, I got slightly better quality stock for my cards. People go, oh, these are really nice. It's the little things. But now it feels like I'm building on a solid base. That time I took off to get my hand feeling better and to get my all my material ready to go and practicing to remember how to play these songs. It's been great. This episode might be long, by the way, but hopefully it's a little gushing. Hopefully that's okay in this case. And The thing I did want to end with, though, and there'll be room to talk about some of the things that are still being worked on, is this idea of sometimes it works. Like, there is a tip buried in all of this, which was I went into that retirement community, or many gigs that I do. Actually, most gigs I do, I have like a long set list where I can jump to a number of songs that are going to end the night. If someone wants another song, I've got a bunch of bangers ready to go. But in that setting where I'm trying to really pitch my repertoire a certain way, I had a list of songs I thought was too long. So I basically all but ran out of songs. I had one song left at that point. And I didn't have an encore planned. I don't have a banger to end the night with quite that way. Like, I specifically want two, one to end my set and one in case there's a request for an encore, maybe even three. And I didn't have it. So sometimes it goes right and I was not prepared for it to go that right. So that's something to work on going forward. And like, it doesn't take that much thought to just say, okay, let's have two songs and another set list that's at the end here, just in case. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't, okay, I was prepared, didn't need it. So that's basically it for me this week. I hope you get something out of this one, a little more of a story time and anecdotes, and I guess that's why I'm doing this series, but it should be, the next episode I think should be interesting, again, if it's what I think it is. I only have one gig coming up this week, so I probably will take a detour from the now to talk a little bit about the kind of context in which I find myself doing this thing. So you folks have a great week, and hopefully I will talk to you again a week from today. And you take care. Cheers.